I give a little shout out, always to start, to Complicated, who does the music for the streams. And no matter when you're watching it, you can go to that link, twitch.tv/Complicated, and listen to their music. They were live today. They play as a trio, though Campbell is the leader of the band. He made the music for this channel. Yeah, they were live today. You can always listen to that while you're listening to this. And they're live every Saturday at 3:30 Central Standard, 4:30 Eastern, and then during the week they play different video games. The three different members of the band will play different games on different days, and sometimes they play together. So today's lecture, All That Is Divine, is one that, like I haven't read this one before, and lately when I've been picking lectures, because I've kind of already got through in less than 2 months, did all the ones that I'm like, those are the foundational ones that anybody really needs to know. What's kind of annoying is as this channel grows, I'll probably have to do a lot of them again. But actually, that'll be kind of fun because to do them with more back and forth live interaction might be interesting. But so this one is one kind of similar to. Let me look at the list, and because I can say which one would be most similar to anyone who's going to watch this back later. Well, to last week to begin with, very similar to last week or earlier in the week. Control your inner conversations, because it goes kind of back and forth between talking about the law and talking about the promise, and then giving a nice little overview of what this reality is. Infinite States was probably the other one, and also this maybe not the State of Vision, but Infinite States, and probably Feel Deeply are the other two that would be similar to this. Oh no, the one I wanted to clip up tonight has already gotten taken down. That was Changing the Feeling of I. That's okay. I won't have a problem doing that one again. And the whole one is up on YouTube, or will be. Changing the Feeling of I is primarily about the law. He Dreams of Me, that we did very recently, just on the 4th, is also another one that has a very similar overview of all of this stuff. Oh wait, hold on. Let me just ban this right click. Yeah, it's a little follow bot. They happen. It's cool. It got deleted from the on stream chat too. But so if you go look at the main page for this channel, twitch.tv/imaginations god, you can see videos, and then past broadcasts. You can look at all the prior broadcasts, and those three I just mentioned. The most recent one, Control Your Inner Conversations. Definitely Neville's Purpose Revealed. And what's the other ones I said? Feel Deeply and Infinite States. All are pretty similar to this one in the sense that there's a nice overview explanation of this reality and why, what the purpose of being here is. It's my favorite lecture on that topic is That Which Already Has Been, of the lectures I've read so far. This lecture today I haven't read yet. Well, I pre-read it. Like, I previewed it and looked at the structure, the paragraphs and stuff, and got the general idea of it just an hour ago. But this is not one that I read like early on when I first found Neville. But I think it's a good one. It's super similar to the one we just did. Now, as I move more into these, I'm going to do a lot more promise ones. because this one has promise stuff, but it's not entirely concerned with that. Though at the end of the day, the message of it is ultimately um, that you should be more interested in and concerned with the promise than in applying and using the law. Though it's normal for people who only want to apply the law and have no interest in the promise. That was discussed um, in in the conversations one I just did, and specifically um, gave notice of the four types of people there are, and using the metaphor of when you spread your seed, like in other words, when you wish to introduce these ideas to other people, you will tend to encounter four types of people. Fertile soil, so people who are ready to hear it, and it's going to take root in them, and they will blossom and develop, and no doubt receive the promises, life, and all that. The highway, so you scatter the seeds on the highway, and they never there's nothing for them to take root in, and there's no that they're burned up by the sun. So people who barely listen to what you said, don't even try to use the law, or use it once or twice and then forget. Thorns, and so that would be people who have a lot of other beliefs already, that they're really that are just sort of general consternation, trouble in their minds, that prevent these ideas from really taking root, because it gets stuck in the thorns of their mind. It gets stuck in all of the places where you're essentially creating your own blocks and creating your own limitations. And then similar to that was the rocks. And the rocks are for whom the people, the soil is too deep below the rocks. It can't penetrate. And that's kind of similar in a sense of like, it could be other belief systems out of those rocks. It could simply be the conditions of that person's life that's not allowing them to take this in at a deeper level. But no matter what it is, the point is, out of these four groups, only one is going to really be interested in what is being said. Now, related to that, me personally, I'm already finding that doing Just Neville is getting a little bit repetitive. So I would like to branch out and try some reading some other authors pretty soon, though it's going to be the same message. Walter C. Lanion is another one I've liked. I've only read one of his books so far, but I do like his work, and would have liked, speed read and all that so far. And pretty soon I'm going to have my friend Manifest 1922 come on. She is very widely read and educated on these topics, and she is a lot more familiar. She's very familiar with Neville, but she's also very familiar with Reverend Ike, who I think is a great, great palate cleanser, though I don't know how much of his stuff I will do on here, just because I'm not sure, like, the copyright on that. When it comes to Neville, he's dead. All of these publications are, free to disseminate. There's, as far as I know, no valid copyright on them right now, preventing me from broadcasting this and all that. Because I'm still in a world where I very much imagine copyright is at play. And so some authors, especially living ones, don't necessarily want you narrating their work. But Joseph Murphy is another one we'll do. However, the issue with Joseph Murphy is until I have a sizable regular chat on here of people who are already fairly educated on the law and applying it successfully, I don't want to put out too much of his information, because look, his book's already sold millions of copies. So the people that were going to read it and read it and approach life the way he talks about it, they're already out there. Now, somebody who hasn't read The Power of Your Subconscious Mind yet, who just found out about Neville, you don't want to go straight to Joseph Murphy. I did that, but I had enough awareness to avoid some of the traps that he can set you up for, of some of the limits that you can just accidentally take on when you read his book or any of his other work. Though he's someone that throughout his career kind of moved in and out of limiting beliefs and limited states of trying to tell other people what to do. But anyway, that's kind of just my intro rant for today. I may seem a little low energy, but I'm not. I'm feeling totally fine. I just not amped up, you know. Um, Trying to think if there's any other little things I want to talk about. I mean, I will just say that I recently, and I talked about this last stream. Um, I recently was able to finally let go of the grasp of a bunch of limiting beliefs about myself and really move into so many better thoughts about myself in a way that finally emotionally impacted me as well as impacted my day-to-day thoughts. Like, so much of the battle of my own thoughts just stopped. And kind of what I'm experiencing now in terms of mood is like a calmness beyond what I've experienced in a while, probably since summer before last. Though at that time, I wasn't experiencing it in this way because at that time I still had a lot of. I was still moving into this. So I could experience these moments of deep relaxation and calm, but they were fleeting. Whereas this has been a very stable state for, if not this week, I forget if this was this week or it started last week, but the days I wasn't streaming is when I was kind of going through that last bit of struggle. And then since I started doing the streams again, I guess last weekend is when it all kind of just cleared. And I include this even though it's very personal because I think for anyone else who ever finds this video, and you would find it because you manifested it, you're probably going through what I went through, which is that you have a few big big to you, important to you, crucial desires. And for a while, you've been in this state of trying to manifest it. And for anyone who hasn't experienced that, I hope you never do. Because when you're going through it, it's like this really never-ending efforting. And what we're all looking for, as Neville says so many times, is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. In other words, the state of mind, the state of consciousness, the mood, the thoughts that you have after you've received what you want. Now, I think one thing that's important to keep in mind too, and I'm sure there are these people out there, some people are chasing the thrill, and they're chasing the thrill moment of getting it. Some people are kind of chasing the journey, and so they keep themselves in perpetual desire and always finding something else to desire. But I know for me personally, going for the feeling of fulfillment, of actually feeling fulfilled and like there's nothing else I want, has been the goal. The journey does not interest me. The feeling of fulfillment interests me when it comes to just my overall life. Like, I want to have that foundation of certain core things. And then on top of that, like once that's sorted, be able to create totally extraneous things. Like projects that I don't necessarily... Oh, thanks, Electric, for the follow. And hopefully it popped up a follower thing for you. And once you have that sort of baseline of things you want in your life, then to create extraneous things like, projects that, yeah, you want to do them, you want to see them expressed well, but it's not going to necessarily make or break you if this project isn't exactly what you want it to be, no matter what that term is. Like, in other words, your sense of self wouldn't be compromised if the project isn't all you mean it to be. You're not going to go broke if the project fails, or, you're not going to, have some core relationship be jeopardized if there's trouble in the project, things like that. Something where it's an extra, it's on top of, and I think sort of there's been sort of a, this is totally a rant now, but there's this concept of like the artist who suffers for their work. And what I really love about when I read David Lynch's book Catching the Big Fish is that he says that's a total myth and that's the worst thing ever. Your best creative work is going to come when you, in your general life, are content and happy and in a good state of mind. And I totally agree with that. And that is ultimately the desire, the goal. And of course, there's things that are attached to that. And for you, it's going to be all kinds of different things. Like it might be having a certain health status, job, or primary set of relationships, place where you live, your average lifestyle. These little details are going to be different person to person, but the idea is that everybody wants that as a good foundation, and then to create these other things from there. But so this past week I just kind of fell into a state of feeling fulfilled in a lot of those areas when I had been manifesting it for a long time, and that was not fun. That was not fun because it was a constant yearning for that feeling of fulfillment. And then once I finally caught, like I would catch it for an hour, catch it for a few minutes, and then I would go back to trying for it again. And now I finally just landed it, and it's great. And for anyone else out there who's been experiencing this, you're going to get to this point too. And when you do, your thoughts are going to naturally transition. Like if you're someone who does quote unquote affirmations, or you've had certain scenes or whatever, the desire to do the scenes is going to mostly go away. Like we're talking about really the Sabbath, which we've discussed on here before, the Sabbath being automatic. And then your mental diet is going to naturally align with the end. There's going to be no effort involved. You're not going to have to correct a million thoughts. It's just going to naturally go to that all the time. It's pretty cool. All right, but so we're going to jump straight into today's lecture. And also let me see, I've got today I'm reading All That Is Divine. All That Is Divine from 1969. In the nature of things, it is impossible for any child born of woman to go unredeemed. For the moment he says, I am, he is proclaiming all that is divine in his flesh. Therefore God cannot cast away that which constitutes the I of man without casting himself away, and that is impossible. Scripture teaches in the form of parables, and we must learn to distinguish between the parable told and its message. In the 18th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, we read that he placed a child in the midst of them and said, See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always behold the face of my Father who is in heaven. The word angel means a messenger, to bring forth, and the word translated child means an infant, a term of endearment. Here we find a child is always beholding the face of the Father who is in heaven, and bringing forth his message by becoming what he beholds. The reality of man is symbolized as that of the Christ child, the incorruptible seed which is always beholding the face of the Father, molding man's reality into the Father's image, that he may become one with his Father. Also, a little interest in aside here. Something that Manifest 1922 has told me is that Reverend Ike said that angel is actually equivalent to a divine thought. So like the highest form of thought you can have about anything, that's an angel. Casting his shadow into a certain role, we judge the role, not knowing that the innocent child is doing it as he molds himself into the image of the Father. In the world, we play our parts by saying, I am rich, I am poor, I am known, I am unknown. Yet all the while, the innocent Christ child, this incorruptible seed, is beholding the face of the perfect one, molding itself into the image of that which it beholds. It is my desire to constantly see truth so clearly that I become its image and share it with everyone who will listen. Not understanding the horrors of the world, man thinks he is damned and not saved. But I tell you, every child born of woman is already redeemed. The being that is the child's reality is molding himself into the image of the Father and becoming what he beholds. But in the world, he is casting himself into the many parts to be played. At the moment, he may be playing the part of a rich man or perhaps a poor man. Still, he is free to choose yet another state by applying the precept, whatever you desire, believe that you have it, and you will. You are always molding yourself into the image of what you are beholding, whether in this world of death, or that world of life. But your Christ child is always beholding the face of your Father and molding himself into his likeness, that you may know who you are and say within yourself, I am he. This seems fantastic, but it is true. For I am telling you what I know, not what I am theorizing or speculating about. No one can fail. God hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he could not let his people go. Then giving them blow after blow, he again hardened his heart. So who is responsible? The child is dreaming he is Job, as he casts his shadow and plays the many parts. But in the end you will understand why you put yourself through hell, and you will be given 100 times more than you had before. Neville has said many times before, and actually the lecture that has the title Job in it is not the best one on the topic, but Neville does mention many times that most people's lives is the story of Job. And Job, of course, lost everything, but then at the end got a bunch of things back, and then better than before. And Neville's interpretation of it, too, is that it wasn't until he started imagining consciously for other people in his life that he was given this redemption. Now, I haven't read Job. I've only come across it in Neville's lectures before, and then just what other people tell me about that particular book. But the thing is, all the states in every character in the Bible is a state you're going to encounter. So I don't understand. Neville did say, and in the last lecture we did, and in prior lectures too, that he's here to talk about suffering and the concept that you put yourself through this creation in order to transcend it and recreate it. Now, my personal opinion is, if you created something, you can't really know it unless you experience it. And you can't really know if you did a good job or not unless you have a direct experience of it, and one that is totally immersed in it, like there's not a bias going on. So you don't remember that you made it, you just experience it in a more pure way. But it's like we have this process where once we start remembering we did it, we kind of have a little different view, because then we can make little adjustments. But we still have this direct subjective experience. So I do think a lot of what we're doing here is deciding, like, oh, look, that thing, I really don't want to make anything like that again. That was a good idea. It is perfect in and of itself, but I will, and totally through love, decide not to create that again. And I'm talking about something that most of humanity would conceive as like an awful thing, or just something that is not. It's not that it isn't the best that it could be. It's just, or that it's flawed. It's just that the experience of it was not necessarily the highest platonic form that it could have been. So I think a lot of things like, a lot of things that man would, pretty much anybody would be like, that sucks. Like a lot of things like disease, death, obviously, extreme states of grief and woe. These are probably not things we would choose to create at a greater intensity or perhaps ever again. Because, of course, there is a conscious entity who has to experience the horror of it. Anyway, that's just my little random aside there. You're playing a role now and have played unnumbered roles in the past. Many of you here are playing the last role. But every role was for the purpose of molding you into the image of that which you are beholding. Always beholding the perfect image, hopeful that you will not deviate from it, you'll become an image of truth. This is very similar to my favorite lecture, That Which Already Has Been. Now he tells you, if you abide in my word, you will know that I am the truth. You will know this when God's Son sets you free, and when your Son sets you free, you are free indeed. In the meantime, you are molding your face into the image of that which you are beholding. Now you see only the shadow world, but if you believe me, and remember my words in your moments of despair, they will support you in your times of trouble. In the 8th chapter of Proverbs, the little child tells us, in the beginning, when the Lord created the universe, I was beside him as a little child. I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always. He who finds me finds life. He who misses me injures himself. All who hate me love death, for they are in love with this world of death. Okay, so for anyone who is not at all familiar with Neville's work, or who's just learning about Neville, this is going to seem like totally opaque, and like it's talking about something that it's not talking about, because the way Neville would interpret this is very different to the way that most other people would interpret it. Okay, so this particular part here is talking about simply the denial of I am, the denial of your creative power. So, in other words, if you decide that you can't actually dictate how your life's going to go, you can't imagine lovingly for other people and have it change their life, that you are essentially powerless and that the world is separate from you, you'll remain in that state of consciousness and continue to create that because you're in love with this idea of being separate from it, of being, a powerless mere mortal. But in embracing your creative power and living in a world of pure imagination, as a child does, you can actually begin to encounter and create true joy in your world of experience. When you view consciousness, you must see the two relationships, the pure, unconditioned I am and the conditioned I am. Now conditioned, I am aware of being Neville, a speaker and teacher. Another condition placed upon pure awareness is that of a banker, a lawyer, or that of a thief. These are all conditioned states of being the little child has cast you into, and you are playing your part perfectly. You do not see that little child until the end of the play, at which time you will hold that infant in your arms, and your intense feeling towards him will come forward into speech. In my own case, I said, "How is my sweetheart?" Neville here is talking about one of the visions of the promise. The child calls forth a term of endearment, for when you find that child, you find life. You find he who was beside the Lord that when he created the world, and you will know that. He who misses me injures himself, and he who hates me is in love with the world of death. Everything here is mortal, and in time the billionaire will leave his billions, and the honored general will leave his medals. The billions will decay, and the medals will tarnish. Everything here will vanish, and leave not a trace behind. But he who played the part of the millionaire and the general cannot vanish. He is that little child within who was one with God and is God. It is he who watches and changes the image until he is as perfect as his Father in heaven is perfect. He is building the same image, and when he reflects and radiates it, you will find that child and speak words of endearment to him. The child is but a sign of your true being who is casting himself into these many roles. He cast me into the role of a poor boy in a family with no intellectual, social, or financial background. Then he brought me out as the perfect image of the Father for me to discover my own being. That is the story of everyone in this world. Now he gives you a cushion by telling you that through the act of assumption you can fulfill every desire of your heart. Knowing what you want, you must assume that you have it, in the same sense that the Christ child is assuming he is what he is beholding. You must behold yourself as secure, if that is your desire. You must behold yourself as healthy, if that is what you want. You must feel yourself into the state desired, with the same persistence as Christ in you is feeling himself into the image of the Father, for he never deviates from that wish. When you know who you are, you will discover that you are free to be anything, go anywhere, and possess every desire of your heart. You will also know that no matter what you have gone through, what you are going through, or what you may go through, you will be redeemed, for he and you will not falter, watching the face of the Father. As Blake said so beautifully, you will see from what I teach that I do not consider either the just or the wicked to be in a supreme state, but to be every one of them states of the sleep, into which the soul may fall into in its deadly dreams of good and evil when it left paradise following the serpent. It was the serpent, the symbol of eternal life, also a symbol of knowledge, that said, "Did God say you would die? I tell you, you will not really die, but will be like God, knowing good and evil. Eating of the tree and good and evil, you remain in the world as you judge another, but behind your mask is the Christ child, who is molding you into the image of the Father. If you find yourself in a state you do not like, apply this principle and assume you are free from all encroachments, knowing in the depth of your soul that you are seeing the face of your Father. When you first see him, you do not know he is the Father. Just as a child knows its parents before he knows that they are his parents, you will know God before you know he is the Father, and you know the Father before you know he is yourself. This is how consciousness awakens in the world. The Son of Man comes to save those who are lost by their wandering consciousness. You simply wandered from the state, that is all. You are not lost. When you say I am, you are in, of, and moving towards the I am. Always in him and of him, you are moving towards consciously thinking, from being the one I am. Everyone is moving towards being that I am, for everyone is in imagination, of imagination, and moving towards knowing consciously that he is all imagination. Everything in this world invites you to wander away from the I am. Urge to believe in that pill, this diet, a man, you move away from your true identity and become lost as your consciousness wanders. But it doesn't really matter, for you cannot be lost as the Son of Man will come. He is the one in whom the ideal has been realized. Called Jesus, he is the personification of the incorruptible seed which awoke, budded, flowered, and bore its fruit. And in that state you move towards fatherhood, when your son David reveals your true identity. He's talking about visions of the promise here, and the promise is simply God's promise to you that you're going to remember you're indeed God the Father, and it presents itself to your mind through a series of 4 visions that take place years apart. Last lecture night I tried to make my message clear, but there were those who did not understand, so I shall repeat it briefly now. The message is simple. In Scripture, the expression Christ is used of the human race, and of the human who has achieved the ideal. The human race, with all of its generations and experiences, is now personified as the eternal youth David. Now the being in whom the ideal is realized is called Jesus, who is God the Father, whose son is David. Everyone in whom the ideal is attained is Jesus. And in the end, there is Jesus only, who is the one body, one spirit, one Lord, one God, and Father of all. You individually will attain this ideal when you are confronted by your Son, who bears witness to the fact that you are God the Father. This may not be the easiest thing to grasp, but you dwell upon it. Lean against this truth in time of trouble. This is what Paul meant when he said, I consider the sufferings of the present time not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed in us. Paul never doubted this heavenly vision was the promise God made to the fathers, but he didn't spell it out. I'm trying my best to make it as clear as possible. The sum total of your experiences in this world of humanity, no matter how cruel they may have been, when fulfilled, produce David. So in the end you will say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. On this level we judge and condemn, but these parts must be played by you, an individual, before you can produce David. And when you see David, you know you're God the Father, and that is Jesus. I think this is a pretty decent explanation of a lot of the nuance of the way Neville tried to communicate the promise. I mean, the idea here is that this is an experience that you designed for yourself. This whole reality is an experience you designed for yourself. And part of that end of it, like the experience is ending, it's time to move on to the next thing. That end is indicated by the promise. It's the little thing that you installed and put in place. It's your alarm clock, really. It's the thing that you put there as the indicator that, okay, this is the end of the dream. Yeah, the dream's going to go on for a little bit longer, but when it's done, you're going to go back to actually creating new things. Here on this level, everything's already been created. You're just learning how to remix things, and you're learning how to basically discard things when you don't want them. That's the main thing you're learning, is how to discard something. Now he calls a child and puts him in the midst of them, saying, "Let no one despise one of these, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always behold the face of my Father who is in heaven." By the way, heaven is in your mind. It's in the depths of your mind. Why? Let me go over that bit again. "Let no one despise one of these, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always behold the face of my Father who is in heaven." Why? Because a man always becomes what his eye beholds. You can take anyone and represent him to yourself as the man or woman you would like him to be, and if you do not waver in that representation, he will conform to it. If you want someone to be big in your world, you must make him big in your mind first, and treat him that way morning, noon, and night. If you see him as that being, he cannot fail, because he must become what you behold. But you cannot waver. The moment you listen to a rumor, you change the picture, and you cannot. Many years ago, I read the story of famous theatrical mothers and their sons. One was Milton Berle. He was her only child, and she built her world around him. She would join the group of boys playing ball and tell them that Milton was the star, and whatever he said, they were to do. If they did not, she would take their ball and bat away. The story listed a dozen such children whose mothers held that ideal of their sons in their mind's eye. They did not falter, and therefore their sons could not fail. They had to become what their mother beheld of them. If a mother compares her son to another child and finds hers wanting, she has broken the image. She sees him less than, but she must see him as great and never falter in her image of him if she really wants him to be great. Now there is something in you that has never taken his eyes off the face of the Father, and will not deviate until you are perfect. In the meantime, it casts its shadow, and you play the part of a bum, a part necessary to bring the image into focus. Then it will cast another image, and yet another, until you are as perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. But what is the reality of your flesh? I am. When you say I am, you are proclaiming that which is divine and cannot be cast off unless God is willing to lose himself, for the I in you is God. Therefore, God cannot fail to achieve his predetermined goal, which is to fashion himself into and eventually become the Father. What a mystery. Just think. Before that the world was, you were predestined to become its author, its actor, and the one who supports and sustains it. You have played many horrible parts, are Jesus, and when your image is perfect, you will awaken as he who is God, the Father of humanity. And when humanity is gathered together into a single being and projected, you will see your son David. That is the mystery. What the next play will be, I do not know. I only know that until everyone is awakened, this play is not complete. So don't criticize or condemn, because from above, we will aid every being here to come home. We are the ones called those who came to save the lost. First we seek him, then save him, by bringing that wandering consciousness back to the vision of the Father. Now my one consuming desire is to see truth so clearly that I become an eyewitness and can tell my experiences just as they happen to me. I'm not asking you to stop giving your money to charity if in the giving it gives you pleasure. But giving to the poor and needy is not going to save you. Only that which is in you, whose face is focused on the eternal Father, can save you by becoming what he is beholding. As he sees it, he casts its shadow. Knowing you need a certain experience embodied, he casts its shadow. Yet, yet gives you a cushion, telling you that whatever you desire, if you will but believe you have received it, you will. You may now be cast in the role of a poor man, but you need not anchor yourself there by claiming you cannot become rich. Rather, you can cast yourself in the role of a rich man by believing you are rich. You can cast yourself consciously into any role you desire to express, while you are molding yourself into the image of the Father. The Bible is filled with wonderful stories which the scholars have misunderstood. Like the one I quoted today, he put the little child in the midst of them. So in the midst of you, in the midst of your mind. Scholars wonder who the little child was and what became of him, for they read it as a secular story, and the Bible hasn't a thing to do with any happening on earth. Jesus is not a man of secular history. He is a representative of every man within whom that incorruptible seed blossomed and bore its fruit. The resurrection, the birth, the discovery of the fatherhood, all of these are the fruit you are bearing. There is nothing comparable to this truth. If you own the world, what would it matter tomorrow? You died and left it all. What would it matter if tomorrow you died and left it all? What would be the point of living if there were no end to this mortal life? But what I am telling you is true. You are an immortal being who cannot die. Dead though the body seems, you, its reality, cannot die, for your I am is God. There never was another God, and there never will be another God. You are slowly awakening to the realization that you are the God who created everything, and that no one is greater than the other. In this world, we all try to be better than the other. But when the truth is revealed, we will know that there is only one Son and only one Father. And if I am the father of David, and you are the father of David, are we not one? Then we will understand the great, I don't know if that's Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. He is the one Father and cannot be two. But if he is a father, there must be a son to bear witness to his fatherhood. If you have the identical experience as I do, are we not one? So in the end, there is only one God, one Father, and one Son. The one fell asleep and is dreaming this scattered divine state into being. In the end, we all will awake as the one who fell asleep, yet we will not lose our identity. I will love you dearly as a seeming other, yet know that we are one. It's a peculiar mystery. We are all God the Father, for there is no other being. God first reveals himself as almighty power, then as I am, and finally as infinite love, the Father. So I have done explanations of Elohim on here before. And Elohim is simply the many who are one. I think the best metaphor that Neville has used is when you dream and there's all these characters in the dream. And you may even move from character to character as you go through the dream. Yet when you wake up, who dreamt all of that? Just you, just the one entity, right? It's the same thing going on in this world. Though it's all being dreamt in concert. So I am as dreaming as everyone. Everyone's part of this one dream. And yet from your perspective, you're always able to alter the dream just as everyone else is able to alter the dream. It's pretty wild. Oh, this is like first time I saw this quote was today, and I think it's amazing. So, why are we here? Blake put it beautifully. We are put on earth a little space that we may learn to bear the beams of love. In your present state, you could not stand the beams of love, for God's infinite love is sheer power. We see power used in going to the moon, and we contemplate going to Venus and Mars. But the power to get us there is as a firecracker compared to your true being, who brought the world into being and sustains it. One day the play will be over, and I don't care what a man has ever done, he will awaken as God. Put yourself now into the part of a father whose son is accused of a horrible act. Loving your son, would you not want him to go free? I know I would. I would regret that he did it, but I would forgive him and want him to go free. Read David's story carefully, and you will find that there is not a thing that man could do that David did not do. He sent Uriah into battle, knowing he would be killed, so David could have Bathsheba. Although he had 1,000 wives of his own, he stole a man's wife because he wanted one more. Yet he was called the perfect man, the Lord's son, a man after my own heart who will do all my will. David is not a little man born of woman, he is spirit. Personified as an eternal youth, David is the result of your journey into the world of death. When the Christ child in you has put you through all the generations of men, and you have experienced everything you agreed to in the beginning, you are perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, and you have formed David, your son, to reveal you to yourself. The world thinks Jesus Christ is the Son of God, but I tell you, Jesus is the Lord. This is a mystery. David comes in the Spirit and calls Jesus Father. Humanity is Christ, the Son, and Jesus is God the Father. I cannot open your skull and force a solution to this mystery into it. I can only give it to you in words, but I can tell you that the day is coming when you will experience my words. Your skull will explode and you will experience everything said of Jesus Christ in the first person, singular, present tense. That's usually the first vision, is a boom in your head. Cast in the major role, you will know you are he, even though you will remain a very limited being in this world of mortality. You came into this world of death to overcome it, bringing with you the incorruptible Christ seed, who is beholding the Father, transforming you into his image. And since the Father cannot beget another, he is begetting himself. But while you are here, take his wonderful precept and believe that you can have anything you desire. There is no restriction placed upon the power of belief. Oh, that's a pretty juicy quote. I have to remember to put that in the database. There is no need to first consult some holy man to see whether you should have it or not. You be the judge. Choose your desire, and to the degree that you are self-persuaded that you have it, you will get it. And this is also a really good, succinct, how-to. A lot of people want to overcomplicate Neville's teachings, and at the end of the day, this is it. You just convince yourself that you already have it. However you want to do that. You want to do a scene, you want to have certain thoughts that you're going to repeat all the time. You want to write yourself a little story and read it. You might even want to mentally or physically make a prop. Like say you want a certain thing and a letter would indicate you have that thing, or like a bill would indicate you have this thing now. Concoct these things mentally, or you can even have a prop that you look at. Something to put yourself into the state of already having this thing, of already having attained that. And you're really just adjusting your self-image, no matter what it is. Even if it's something seemingly on the outside, like an object that you want. Well, let's say it's something like, I was going to say car, but car is a little bit too tied to self. Something a little similar, like literally this dish rack that I looked for a long time. Well, the me who didn't have the dish rack had the problems of where I could put all these dishes away. And now the me that has the dish rack has that problem solved. I look at the dish rack right now. I'm very content and happy with it. That was an adjustment of self. It's represented by a physical object, but at the end of the day, it was about, am I pleased with this arrangement of objects that I need to organize or not? I was formerly not pleased. What I had going on was not a good solution, was not what I wanted, and now I have that all solved and sorted. It works perfectly. It was an adjustment of self, not necessarily the object. And this applies even more intensely to things like relationships, jobs, money, health, most importantly. Okay. Choose your desire, and to the degree that you are self-persuaded that you have it, you will get it. And because we are all one, if it takes 1 million people to aid the birth of your assumption, they will do it. without their knowledge or consent, so you don't have to ask anyone to aid you. They will do it not even knowing that they are. All you are called upon to do is assume that you have it. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That is the principle. So this is like, Neville's been going on about the promise so far. And when it comes to the law, which is I know what most people are interested in anyway, this is like you're not going to get much better, succinct summary than this when it comes to the law. This is really all you need to frickin' know, other than, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As you think you are. Like if we want to reduce it, as you think you are, that's probably the shortest. Choose your desire, and to the degree that you are self-persuaded that you have it, you will get it. And because we are all one, if it takes 1,000,000 people to aid the birth of your assumption, they will do it without their knowledge or consent, so you don't have to ask anyone to aid you. They will do it not even knowing that they are. And you are called upon to do all you are called upon to do is to assume that you have it. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That is the principle. Behind this fantastic play, where you are awakening as God, we have a secondary state. In it, so your sense of self, your whatever you say your name is, whatever you say your current job is or where you live, any of that stuff, that's your role. That's what Neville here is calling a secondary state. In it, you may be cast into the role of a poor man and need Caesar's coins to meet his demand of taxes, rent, and food. So you can render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's by assuming that you have that which Caesar demands, and remain faithful to that assumption. In the meantime, something else is taking place in you, which is infinitely greater than Caesar's world. For this world will come to an end, but the kingdom of heaven is forever as it is eternal. Caesar's world is one of death, but the human imagination is eternal life. It is the human imagination who will reveal your true identity to you when you are perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Then you will see David, the sign that you have reached the end of the journey. Having played all the parts, you are the conqueror, and your crown is waiting for you as your son reveals your fatherhood. If the Lord tells David, "Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee," and David calls you father, are you not the one called God in Scripture? It seems so silly for a little man, one of billions, to make these extravagant claims, but they are true. Einstein was a man of small stature, but he conceived an idea that has changed the thinking of the entire world. So God, wearing the mask of a little man, takes it off to reveal his true identity. And the little man's words, believed, will change the world. So the little child was brought and put in the midst of everyone. Don't despise him, for he is the one who was with me in the beginning of time. When I laid out the foundations of the world, he was beside me as a little child. He was daily my delight, delighting forever in the affairs of men. He who finds him finds life. He who misses him injures himself. He who hates him loves death. The little child is a symbol of you, molding yourself into the image of the Father. You are casting yourself into these shadow worlds, and when you are perfect, you will radiate your Father and bear the very stamp of his nature. Then David will stand before you in spirit and call you Father. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. We're not doing another lecture tonight. I was just scrolling ahead to see what was next. It was pretty wild. In that which already has been, Neville talks about this reality as a school. So it's not just the memory of being God the Father, but it's as man learning to create on the level of Father. And let's scooch us back over to the reading room right now. Oop, just moved the chat. Moved again, sorry. Okay. So here, Neville talked about sort of what you're creating is an image of self. Um, but being that it's all imagination, it's all you, that's also part of this self. Um, and that which already has been, he talked about this reality as a school, as a place where things are mortal, so they can die, they can be destroyed, they can wax and wane, they can have their moment of time. So you're not bound to anything eternally. So a lot of what you're learning how to do here is to essentially uncreate something lovely. Joy, the joy for ashes type thing. Um, it at the when I quit out here in just a little bit, there's a great quote about recreation, about the idea that God became man to recreate and transcend his creation. But in that which already has been, he talks about the idea that man is learning to create on the level of the Father. Well, here everything's already been created. All we're doing here is remixing stuff. You're not making anything new. It's all already done. The acts are finished. You don't remember that you even did them. Okay? So nothing you've ever encountered in your life is anything new, anything that any actual person has ever made. It was all made by the Father before the world was. Okay? And you're just here like remixing it. Well, why are you doing that? Like I said earlier, like I conjectured earlier, one thing is to figure out what you got right and what you didn't get right. Because some things, even though they are whole, complete, and perfect, otherwise they couldn't exist, they're maybe not the best thing for a sentient being to have to go through. So learning and identifying those things so that you don't create them again once you're creating new things again is probably a great skill and habit to have if you're someone if you're a being, an infinite powerful entity who's creating whole worlds. You probably don't want to keep making a lot of crappy mistakes. So you're here to have an experience as a sentient being so you can identify some of those. And then also this whole recreation thing is like, well, if you do make a mistake again, you now know how to uncreate it. Because otherwise it's going to be suspended in eternity. You're not going to be able to get rid of it. So it's like acquiring this next level skill set so that the next infinite creation like this one is even better than this one has been. That's the idea. I don't know what lecture I'm going to do on Tuesday. I may actually take a break from Neville for a bit and do some Walter C. Lanion. But pretty soon, and hopefully it'll be next week, I'm going to have my friend Manifest 1922 on, and we're just going to talk about, we're just going to talk. Things she's manifested, some of her favorite things she's read, whether it's Neville or some other writer, just kind of like how she's been able to manifest things, which I know people are very interested in, always hearing someone else's techniques, stuff like that. But yeah, tonight I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly, and I'm not going to play any lectures during the song tonight. It's just going to be the nice outro song, but it has got that quote that I'm talking about when it comes to recreation, like what you're learning to do and remembering to do and gathering a further skill set towards is recreation while you're here experiencing being a human. All right, so thanks for tuning in. I will be live again Tuesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And also check out Camblicated. I'll post up his link again. They were live today. You can go listen to their Campbell does the song you're going to hear at the end, and he plays live with his trio every Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard, 4:30 Eastern. They were live today. Go to that link, listen to their set. It was awesome. It was a killer set. All right, thanks. See y'all later. Ooh. I gotta fix that next stream.